The sky. The final battlefield. Picture a world where silence above the clouds is broken by the roar of engines, where the thin blue line of our atmosphere becomes the most dangerous frontier. What would happen if two of the most powerful air forces on Earth suddenly faced each other head to head? The United States. Russia. A clash not on the ground, not at sea, but high above in the heavens, where speed, stealth, and split-second decisions mean survival or defeat. Would America's stealth bombers dominate before the first radar sweep? Or could Russia's hypersonic missiles shatter the illusion of U.S. air superiority? For decades, both nations have prepared for a conflict that everyone hopes never comes. But if it did, who would truly control the skies? In this documentary-style journey, you'll step into that tense scenario. We'll unravel the secret strengths, hidden weaknesses, and dramatic possibilities of a war no one wants, yet everyone wonders about. Stay until the very end, because the answer might not be the one you expect. And if you love exploring these what-if scenarios with us, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the mission. This is not prediction. This is not propaganda. This is education and suspense. The first strike. When silence breaks. The skies are not empty. Even when they look still, they're never truly silent. Satellites glide like sentinels, listening. Radars sweep the horizons, tracking shadows that do not wish to be seen. Above the oceans, fighters and bombers train daily, waiting for a command that everyone hopes never comes. Yet in this story, the moment arrives. Silence shatters. The air becomes the first battlefield of a war the world has feared for decades. It begins without warning. At dawn, over the icy edge of the Arctic, Russian radar stations pick up something unusual. Faint signals, barely whispers, as if invisible birds had entered their airspace. At that same moment, halfway across the world, American early warning satellites detect a flash, a Russian missile test, or perhaps something more. Within seconds, two military commands, the Pentagon in Washington and the National Defense Center in Moscow, are on full alert. Phones ring. Lights flicker. Decisions are demanded. The chessboard has tipped into motion. For Russia, the doctrine is speed and surprise. Decades of strategy have taught them that they cannot match the sheer size of America's global air fleet. Instead, they rely on a punch so fast, so overwhelming, that it leaves their adversary scrambling. Two 160 Blackjack bombers roar into the sky, escorted by Su-35 fighters, carrying long-range cruise missiles designed to strike from afar. On the frozen runways of Murmansk, MiG-31 interceptors ignite their afterburners, ready to defend the motherland at supersonic speeds. Across the ocean, America's strategy is patience and invisibility. The first wave does not come from bombers in plain sight, but from stealth. Two Spirit bombers slip through radar nets like ghosts. F-22 Raptors, designed not only to fight but to disappear, are already airborne, their presence unknown to all but those who command them. High above, invisible even to most radars, satellites relay targeting data to U.S. command centers. America does not strike blindly, it strikes with information. And so, the first clash of this imagined war is not in the skies themselves, but in the unseen world of detection. Russia's radars pulse, trying to catch shadows that refuse to stay still. America's stealth aircraft edge closer, daring those systems to notice. Whoever controls the opening moments, whoever sees first, strikes first, will hold the skies. The Arctic becomes the spark. A Russian S-400 missile battery suddenly comes alive, its long-range radar sweeping the heavens. It catches a faint trace, something, perhaps a bomber. Orders are shouted. Missiles launch, streaking into the pale sky. But the B-2 Spirits are already gone, vanishing like smoke, leaving only confusion in their wake. The Russians celebrate, believing they have destroyed an intruder, but in truth the bombers continue on, undetected, carrying payloads that could shift the balance. In Alaska, American pilots rush to their jets. The F-35s, sleek and digital, roll out onto runways lined with frost. They are more than fighters, they are flying computers, able to fuse information from satellites, drones, and their own sensors into a single picture of the sky. Their task is not only to fight but to guide the war, to tell commanders what is real and what is deception. And deception is everywhere. Russia unleashes waves of electronic jamming, flooding the skies with noise. GPS signals falter. American pilots hear static in their headsets, their instruments flicker. In return, American cyber units strike back, targeting the very radars and communication systems guiding Russian defenses. It is a war not only of missiles and jets, but of code and signals, each side trying to blind the other before the real battle begins. From the North Atlantic to the Black Sea, the tension builds. Russian bombers sweep wide arcs, flanked by fighters that dare NATO jets to intercept. American aircraft carriers, floating cities of steel, maneuver into striking positions. Overhead, unmanned drones, some no larger than birds, others with wingspans greater than a fighter, circle silently, feeding their masters every detail. The chessboard stretches across the globe, every piece in motion. But no matter the technology, war in the skies comes down to speed and nerve. Over the Baltic, an American F-22 finally locks eyes with a Russian Su-35. Two of the most advanced fighters on Earth, face to face in a dance that pilots have dreaded for decades. The Raptor, nearly invisible on radar, holds the advantage of stealth. The Su-35, with raw power and agility, trusts in the skill of its pilot. They circle, climb, and dive, each trying to catch the other in a fatal angle. The world holds its breath. But before missiles fire, a command comes: disengage. For now, this clash will not decide the skies. The true storm is still ahead. The first chapter of this war reveals its secret. Victory will not belong to the nation with the most planes or the fastest missiles. It will belong to the one that adapts, that turns confusion into clarity, and uses the unseen world as much as the visible. The skies are no longer just about wings and engines. They are about data, deception, and decisions made in seconds. And so the silence of peace is broken. The first strike has begun. But as these two powers test each other's strength, one truth emerges: this is only the beginning. For what comes next will stretch far beyond the Arctic skies, into the vast oceans, the deserts, and even the silent realm of space. The war expands: carriers, bombers, and the ocean skies. The Arctic clash was only the spark. Within hours, the conflict spreads like wildfire across the oceans. The skies above the Atlantic and Pacific are no longer silent highways of commerce. They have become killing grounds where the future of air dominance will be decided. At sea, the United States Navy makes its move. Massive aircraft carriers, each a floating fortress the size of a small city, cut through the waves. On their decks, dozens of F-35C fighters stand ready. Pilots climb into cockpits, visors glowing, as engines roar. The order is given, and the carriers transform into launch pads of thunder, hurling jets skyward. The Pacific Ocean, once calm, fills with the silhouettes of fighters circling overhead. Russia, too, knows the ocean skies are crucial. Their bombers, two 95 Bears and two 22M backfires, sweep wide arcs over the seas, carrying missiles that can reach a carrier before its fighters ever close in. Flanked by Su-35 escorts, they move like packs of predators, testing the defenses of the American fleet. The first encounter happens in the North Atlantic. A formation of Russian bombers, tracked by American satellites, moves toward NATO shipping lanes. From the decks of the USS Gerald R. Ford, F/A, 18 Super Hornets thunder upward. High above the clouds, they converge on the intruders. Radar locks. Warnings flash. The Russian crews know they cannot outrun these jets, but they do not retreat. Instead, they release electronic decoys, false radar signals that paint the skies with phantom targets. For every real bomber, a dozen illusions appear. The American pilots must decide in seconds: fire at the wrong target and reveal their position, or wait and risk being too late. Meanwhile, far to the east, over the Pacific, a different story unfolds. Russia launches a wave of long-range missiles from bombers patrolling near Kamchatka. Sleek, hypersonic, and almost unstoppable, these weapons streak toward the ocean, hunting American carrier groups. But the carriers are not defenseless. Aegis destroyers, part of the fleet's protective ring, fire interceptor missiles. The sky becomes a furious exchange of fire, missiles chasing missiles, explosions flickering like lightning over the horizon. Some threats are destroyed, others slip through, and every moment tightens the tension aboard the American ships. But the carriers hold. Their true power is not their armor, but their reach. Dozens of fighters, supported by airborne early warning planes, fan out to dominate the skies for hundreds of miles. A carrier is not just a ship, it is a mobile airbase, capable of shifting the balance anywhere on Earth. And Russia knows it. To win, they must threaten these giants. To lose them would mean surrendering the skies. As the battle spreads, the air above the oceans becomes a realm of endurance. Russian pilots push their machines to the limit, knowing their homeland is far behind them. American crews operate as part of a vast machine, guided by satellites, drones, and command ships. Yet even with all the technology, war in the skies comes down to human limits. Fatigue, stress, the weight of decisions made in seconds, all hang heavy in the cockpits. And then, a new weapon enters the stage. The Russians unleash their MiG-31 interceptors, armed with hypersonic Kinzhal missiles. These jets, flying faster than most fighters can dream, carry weapons that can strike both carriers and aircraft at incredible ranges. Their strategy is simple: strike hard, strike fast, and retreat before the enemy can react. Against such speed, even America's most advanced fighters struggle to respond. But the United States is not without its own trump cards. From the heart of the Pacific, B-2 bombers rise once more, invisible to radar, armed with precision weapons. Guided by data from stealth drones circling unseen, they slip past Russian defenses, targeting the very bases that launch these hypersonic threats. Suddenly, Russian runways are under pressure, forcing their interceptors to fight with fewer places to land, fewer options to strike. The oceans burn with invisible lines of power, each side testing the other. And as the battles drag on, one truth becomes clear: the skies above the seas are not just about jets and bombers. They are about logistics. Fuel tankers in the air. Supply chains across continents. The ability to keep fleets in motion for weeks on end. America's carriers bring a mobile empire, but they require constant support. Russia's long-range strikes threaten that very lifeline, hoping to starve the giant rather than outfight it head-on. The war expands, and with it, the scale of the gamble. Every mile of ocean crossed brings the risk of escalation. Every missile fired carries the weight of history. Both sides know that one mistake, one strike too deep, could shift the conflict into realms no one dares imagine. And yet, the skies above Earth are not the final frontier. For in this war, the battlefield does not stop at the clouds. High above, in the silence of orbit, another struggle is already beginning. One that could determine the fate of every pilot, every missile, and every decision made below. Shadows in orbit, the space and cyber battlefield. While fighters duel across the seas and bombers carve through the clouds, an even quieter battle unfolds far above Earth, and deep inside the digital networks that connect both nations' war machines. The war for the skies is no longer fought only with wings and missiles. It is also waged with satellites, signals, and the unseen hands of cyber warriors. High above, satellites glide in perfect silence. To most, they are just specks of light on a night sky. But for the United States and Russia, these satellites are eyes, ears, and the nervous system of war. They guide missiles, direct aircraft, and feed commanders with second-by-second intelligence. Without them, fighters would fly blind, carriers would wander, and bombers would strike in darkness. That is why, in this imagined conflict, space becomes the ultimate high ground. The first strike in orbit comes not with an explosion, but with a flicker. A Russian Inspector satellite, long dismissed as harmless, suddenly maneuvers close to an American communications satellite. Moments later, signals vanish. The U.S. command loses contact with one of its orbital assets. To the public, it looks like nothing has changed. But to commanders on Earth, the battlefield has shifted dramatically. The United States responds with its own secret arsenal. Small, maneuverable satellites, tiny machines that look like nothing more than metal boxes, spring to life. They shift orbits, shadowing Russian assets, watching, waiting. Some are armed not with missiles, but with beams of energy capable of blinding enemy optics without destroying them. The war in space is not about firepower. It is about denial. Whoever can blind the other first will hold the advantage in the skies below. At the same time, cyber warfare spreads like fire across the globe. Russian operators, sitting in darkened rooms, unleash waves of attacks on American radar systems, navigation networks, and even civilian grids. In Alaska, air defense operators suddenly watch their screens fill with false targets. Some see swarms of aircraft that do not exist. Others see silence where an intruder might be. Confusion ripples through every decision. But America is not defenseless. Its cyber warriors strike back, targeting Russian airbases, command centers, and logistics systems. A fighter on the runway might find its communications jammed. A missile battery, moments before launch, might suddenly shut down. Invisible hands reach into the enemy's heart, twisting the battle before a shot is fired. As this unseen war escalates, both sides face a dilemma. Satellites are fragile, but destroying them outright would fill orbit with debris, threatening all nations, even their own. And so, most attacks are designed to disable, not destroy. Yet the effect is the same. Radar networks falter, GPS grows unreliable, and pilots in cockpits find themselves questioning every signal. For the soldiers fighting below, the impact is immediate. An American pilot chasing a Russian bomber suddenly sees his radar freeze. A Russian interceptor locking onto a stealth target loses its feed as if the sky itself turned to static. In these moments, skill and instinct become more important than technology. The pilot who trusts his senses more than his instruments may be the one who survives. Meanwhile, in orbit, the stakes rise higher. A Russian anti-satellite missile streaks upward, launched from a MiG-31. It hits its target, and an American reconnaissance satellite shatters into fragments. Across the Pacific, American ground stations watch their screens go dark. In response, the United States activates a secret program. The X-37B, an unmanned spaceplane, hidden in orbit for months, now deployed for counter-operations. Its exact mission is unknown to all but a few. Some say it can disable satellites. Others whisper it carries weapons of its own. But whatever its purpose, one truth is clear. The United States has no intention of losing the war above the clouds. And yet, the danger is not only in space. The cyber war begins to bleed into civilian life. Communication networks slow. Power grids flicker. Air traffic outside the battlefield grows chaotic. Though both nations vow to keep the war contained, the invisible lines between military and civilian systems blur dangerously. A single misstep could spiral the conflict far beyond control. As the war in space and cyberspace intensifies, the skies below grow more unpredictable. Missiles are launched without clear confirmation. Pilots fly missions without reliable coordinates. Generals make decisions with incomplete intelligence. The fog of war thickens, and with it, the risk of catastrophe grows. The chapter ends with a haunting realization. The skies can no longer be controlled by aircraft alone. Whoever rules space and cyberspace will rule the war itself. And both America and Russia know it. Which means the next moves will not only decide who holds the skies, but whether the conflict descends into realms no nation is prepared to face. For now, the shadows in orbit deepen. The digital battlefield rages unseen. But soon, the war will descend again to Earth, this time over cities, where the human cost cannot be hidden. Fire over cities, defending the homeland. The war that began in silence now reaches the skylines of nations. The cities, once distant from the clash of fleets and bombers, suddenly become battlegrounds of their own. Skyscrapers stand beneath skies filled with tension. Streets echo with the distant thunder of engines. For the first time, civilians look upward and wonder if the horizon hides danger. Russia moves first. In this imagined scenario, their doctrine is clear. Keep pressure on the enemy's heart, force them to defend instead of attack. Waves of long-range bombers take off from hidden bases, escorted by fighters, carrying cruise missiles designed not to strike cities directly but to paralyze military command centers, power grids, and air bases. Their message is unmistakable: nowhere is beyond reach. Over the Atlantic, Tu-95 Bears, relics of the Cold War yet still deadly, move steadily westward. High above, American early warning satellites detect the launch instantly. Across the eastern United States, alarms ring in underground bunkers. Pilots are rushed from their quarters to cockpits. The quiet skies over New York, Washington, and Chicago fill with streaks of interceptors climbing rapidly to meet the intruders. This is where America's strength reveals itself. The Homeland Defense Network, built over decades, is a layered shield. F-22 Raptors streak into the upper atmosphere, invisible to most radars, hunting the bombers before they can release their payloads. Behind them, F-35s and F-15EX fighters form defensive walls, protecting major population centers. On the ground, missile defense systems such as the Patriot batteries and the ground-based mid-course defense interceptors prepare to strike any incoming missiles. The first clash above the homeland is swift and brutal. A Russian bomber, moments away from releasing its cruise missiles, suddenly finds itself targeted by a Raptor it never saw coming. In seconds, it's forced to turn back. Another bomber manages to release its payload, and cruise missiles skim low over the Atlantic, weaving between radar shadows. But they do not go unnoticed. American Aegis destroyers stationed offshore launch interceptors, lighting the night sky with trails of fire. Some missiles are destroyed midair. Others slip past, only to be intercepted again by land-based defenses. The shield holds, though not perfectly. A few missiles detonate far from their intended targets, leaving citizens shaken but safe. In Russia, the story is mirrored. American B-2 Spirits, invisible in the night, slip toward Russian airspace. Their targets are not cities but air bases, command bunkers, and radar stations. For Moscow, the defense falls to the S-400, S-500 missile systems, the pride of Russian air defense. Their radars sweep the skies, searching for shadows. Missiles launch, arcing high, chasing ghosts in the clouds. Some connect. Others do not. The result is chaos. American bombers deliver precision strikes, forcing Russian defenses to scatter their focus. As the skies above cities ignite, the psychological war begins. Civilians shelter in basements, watching news feeds that speak of near misses, intercepted strikes, and the bravery of unseen pilots. For both nations, the message is clear: the skies are no longer safe. Fear becomes a weapon in itself, pushing leaders to escalate, to show strength, to reassure their people that the homeland will not fall. But the defense of cities reveals a grim truth. No system is perfect. No shield is absolute. A single missile that slips through can cause devastation far beyond its weight. And so, the tension rises with every interception, every radar contact, every pilot who climbs into the sky. The question becomes not whether the cities can be defended, but how long the defenders can endure before exhaustion and mistakes tilt the balance. Above Washington, a pair of Raptors lock onto incoming intruders. Above Moscow, S-500 systems unleash salvos into the night. The world's two most powerful air defense networks are pushed to their limits. And yet, both sides still hold. Neither capital falls. Neither nation breaks. Instead, the war grows more complex, more desperate, as each side realizes that defending cities is not enough. To end the battle, they must take control of the skies everywhere, not just at home. But there is one more frontier yet to be tested. A place where speed becomes unimaginable, where the line between science and weapon blurs. The next chapter of this war will leave even the highest flying jets behind, and ascend into a realm where hypersonic weapons and experimental aircraft decide the fate of the skies. Hypersonic storm, the final gamble for air supremacy. The skies above cities have burned with fire, the oceans have echoed with engines, and space has been drawn into the conflict. Yet the war is not decided. Each side still stands, battered but unbroken. And so, both America and Russia reach for the weapons of tomorrow, the experimental machines and hypersonic systems that could tip the balance once and for all. The first tremor comes at dawn. From hidden airfields deep within Russia, MiG-31s take off, each armed with a Kinzhal hypersonic missile. These weapons travel at speeds so great that defenses have only moments to react. Their targets are not cities but the arteries of American power, carriers in the Pacific, radar stations in Alaska, and airbases across Europe. As they streak through the stratosphere, their contrails are almost invisible, their velocity unimaginable. The message is clear: Russia is betting on speed as its final weapon. But America has prepared for this moment. For years, it has tested its own hypersonic arsenal. From the deserts of Nevada to the skies over the Pacific, projects once whispered in secrecy now roar into action. The AGM-183A air-launched rapid response weapon, fired from a B-52 bomber, screams across the sky faster than 5 times the speed of sound. Other systems, still experimental, are unleashed not just as weapons but as demonstrations of reach. Hypersonics are not designed for prolonged battles, they are designed for decisive blows. The first collisions are unlike anything seen before. Interceptor systems, designed to track conventional missiles, struggle to lock onto targets moving faster than sound itself. The skies above the Pacific become streaks of fire, as American destroyers and Russian missile batteries unleash everything they have in desperate attempts to stop weapons traveling at unimaginable speeds. Some are intercepted. Others slip through. Every impact, every detonation, rattles the very foundation of command decisions. Yet this is not just a contest of missiles. The air itself becomes the proving ground for experimental aircraft. From American bases, the State Route 72, rumored successor to the legendary Blackbird, emerges from the shadows. Faster than any fighter, designed to outrun both radar and missiles, it tears across the upper atmosphere, collecting intelligence and targeting data that no satellite can match. In Russia, whispers of their own hypersonic prototypes come alive. Sukhoi's experimental platforms, built for speed rather than stealth, streak across the skies, testing whether raw velocity can challenge invisibility. But technology alone cannot decide the skies. Pilots, controllers, and commanders face decisions that grow more desperate with every passing hour. An American pilot guiding a hypersonic strike knows that a single wrong coordinate could unleash devastation in the wrong place. A Russian commander watching his missile batteries falter must decide whether to escalate further, to unleash weapons that push the war into even more dangerous territory. The margin for error shrinks to seconds. And then, the unthinkable nearly happens. A Russian hypersonic missile, streaking toward an American carrier group, slips past defenses. Alarms blare. Pilots scramble. At the final moment, an F-35, feeding data to the fleet, coordinates an interception that destroys the weapon just miles before impact. The fleet survives. But the message is unmistakable: no defense is perfect. The balance of the skies hangs by threads thinner than ever before. As the hypersonic storm rages, a realization spreads through both commands. Neither side can fully control the skies. Every strike invites retaliation. Every defense strains under the weight of speed and chaos. Victory is no longer measured in territory or even in destroyed aircraft, it is measured in survival. Who can endure the longest without breaking? Who can fight at speeds beyond human comprehension without making the mistake that ends everything? In the end, the skies themselves seem exhausted. Pilots, drained from endless missions, collapse into silence. Missiles, once endless, dwindle in number. Cyber warriors find their networks battered and fractured. Satellites, blinded or drifting, provide fragments of the truth. Both nations have tested every weapon, every tactic, every layer of technology. And yet, no clear ruler emerges. The war ends not with a decisive strike, but with silence. Both America and Russia stare at each other across the sky, knowing that another day of escalation could drag the world into fire from which it may never recover. The skies remain contested, scarred by contrails and echoes of thunder, but neither flag claims dominion. Instead, the lesson is carved in the silence that follows. In the age of hypersonics and stealth, of cyber shadows and spaceborne sentinels, no single nation truly rules the skies. The cost of dominance is too high. The risk, too great. And so, the story closes not with victory, but with understanding. The skies above Earth remain a place of competition, tension, and power, but also of restraint. For in this imagined war, both America and Russia discover that the ultimate ruler of the skies is not speed, stealth, or firepower, but the decision not to unleash them fully. The storm passes. The skies fall quiet once again. But the question remains, lingering in every horizon: if the silence ever breaks again, who would truly rule the skies?